So the amount of waste we dispose of needs to be accounted in the system. So using the log, we would record the volume that we have taken. Under the research group, select waste and disposal, what solvent you disposed of, and how much was disposed of. So having evacuated the flask, it's now time to dispense the solvent into our collection vessel. The first thing to do is to turn the tap anti-clockwise 90 degrees down to dispense. Then, moving the green tap anti-clockwise, you can start letting the solvent into your flask. The best idea is never to let go of the green tap because it doesn't take long to fill, and then you turn it back clockwise to isolate the solvent again. Now this flask is still under somewhat of a vacuum from before, so we need to repressurize by turning the black tap further anti-clockwise to refill, to repressurize, and then around to closed. So now that we've collected our solvent in the collection vessel, we'd like to transfer it into a syringe to take back to the lab. So for this you'll need your syringe and a rubber bung. To start with, you want to follow the end of your needle to the tip and use your fingertips to feed it into the septum of the flask. Next, we'll open up the tap to the vessel, and you should be careful this time because the vessel is under up to 5 psi pressure. You could get a bit of pressure forcing the end of the plunger to come off the syringe. So make sure you're always in control of the plunger when you're removing solvent from the Puresolv. With our needle tip inserted in the solvent, we'll withdraw the solvent that we need. If you're taking a large quantity of solvent, so up to sort of 20 mils or more, you might need to repressurize the flask. That's done by using the black tap, turning it clockwise 90 degrees to repressurize, and then back to close. Once you've withdrawn how much solvent you need, turn your syringe upside down and pull up a layer of nitrogen into your syringe, just as an extra layer. Use your fingertips to walk the syringe tip out of the septum and then press it back into the rubber bung. You should never resheath your needle back into its protective cover because there's a high chance that you'll stick your finger. Lastly, close off the tap to the Puresolv and we're ready to transport this. So with our solvent removed with the syringe, the last thing we need to do is shut down the Puresolv. So first of all, just make sure that your black tap and your green tap are both in the closed position. The vacuum pump is turned off, and you record the volume of solvent you removed on the Puresolv log. So the second option of removing solvent from the Puresolv is to use what's known as a Schlenk flask. So it looks like a round bottom flask, except the solvent has to pass through a tap on the side, which can be isolated so that the solvent can be kept free from air and taken back to the lab. So to use this, you need to remove the collection flask currently on the Puresolv and replace it with your collection flask. Again, if there's solvent in there, tip it out and record it. We connect our Schlenk flask and connect the hose. Okay. With our flask fully evacuated and flushed with nitrogen, we can now enter in the solvent. Turning the black tap downwards to dispense, we can now open the green tap. You can see the flow of solvent travelling through the Schlenks via the side tap into the flask. When we've collected the solvent that we need, we turn the green tap clockwise to isolate the solvent. If needed, pour the solvent in. Bring it around to fill, to repressurize the flask, and then finally around to close. Next, we isolate the tap so that we have our dry solvent in an atmosphere of nitrogen. We can then remove the hose. And safely take back our solvent to the lab to use at a later date. So these Schlink flasks allow you to store solvents free from the atmosphere, and they can be obtained from companies such as Sigma Aldridge. However, I do have a stash up in the level 5 service room you can come and collect. In case you need to use solvent after hours, you can collect the solvent before 5 o'clock and then use it in your lab after hours. You should consult the SWP on Schlink techniques on how to remove solvent from these Schlink flasks. And you should also note that the storage of solvents such as THF and diethyl ether should not be held for more than a week, as these solvents are inhibitor free, as the Puresolv does not purify these. And so prolonged storage of THF and ether from the Puresolv can result in peroxide formation, which can lead to explosive hazards.